What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And tonight I am joined by Connor because we have some breaking news to discuss. The Kansas City Chiefs have re-signed Chris Jones to a new 5-year deal, $95 million guaranteed. According to Ian Rappaport, this deal will pay him around $32 million per year. But the bottom line, Connor, is that Chris Jones will remain a Kansas City Chief for the foreseeable future. Chris Jones promised that he would not play for another NFL franchise. He delivered on that promise. The Kansas City Chiefs were able to come to an agreement with him. And this just feels like a huge relief for Chiefs fans everywhere, as everyone was anxious to see what would happen with Chris Jones. They get this deal done before free agency, which means Chris Jones never actually will hit the open market. That's good for the Chiefs. They give him a deal that is very fair. I mean, he's going to be the highest paid defensive tackle in the league. That's what he deserves. He's the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the league. We'll get into all the details and everything like that in our instant thoughts and analysis. But Connor, just kind of what was your reaction when you saw the deal and your initial thoughts?
First thing I'll point out is that you said it's a relief to Chiefs fans everywhere. That's objectively false because, as we've discussed at length, there's a large subset of Chiefs fans peddling the idea that we don't need Chris Jones because Brett the Dubois Reach can do no wrong, and it's disrespectful to the rest of the defense to say that we need Chris Jones, despite the fact that, like, I've used the phrasing throughout this entire process that Chris Jones is the engine that makes this defense run. You know, like, the secondary wouldn't look as good without Chris Jones causing pressure. The other defensive linemen wouldn't get as many opportunities without Chris Jones wreaking havoc up the middle. So, yeah, you need Chris Jones in order to continue winning. And, like, I don't know, people complain about, like, the length because it's 5 years and all that. But, like, I'm just happy
I have a feeling this will be more like a 3-year, $95 million deal, with the 4th and 5th year of the contract being mostly fluff and funny money, if I had to guess.
I'm not worried about it if it's not. Because, like, I was watching UFC 299 during it in public, and I opened my phone and I see just like I see a tweet from Ian that has a picture of Chris Jones, and the first word was blockbuster. Now, obviously, in hindsight, he wasn't even under contract, so we couldn't have traded him even if we wanted to. So it was impossible for it to be a blockbuster trade. But just seeing blockbuster with Chris Jones in it scared the shit out of me for just a second. But then I saw that, like, to keep him in Kansas City was in the rest of the tweet. And, like, if I was I was in public, so obviously I didn't do what I wanted to. But if I was at home when I saw that, I'd be, like, running up and down my steps, like, screaming, just ecstatic that Chris Jones ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way the pendulum swung as this saga, I guess, concludes with Chris Jones, because these negotiations have been going on for close to 2 years now. But, you know, I said it jokingly a few times how, oh, Chris Jones is a Houston Texan. He's going to be a Houston Texan.
Okay, for the folks at home, Josh has been in our group chat for the past, like, 48 hours, just constantly being like, Chris Jones is a Houston Texan. Come on, Connor. You know it's inevitable. Chris Jones is a Houston Texan. And I've had to deal with this for the past, like, 2 days. When we're playing Helldivers, it's just, hey, Connor, aren't you ready for Chris Jones to be a Houston Texan? It's like, shut up, Josh. You did this last year. Like, he made a jersey swap of Chris Jones in a Detroit Lions uniform because it was going to happen before the draft last year.
No, that was during the first contract negotiations the last time when his rookie deal was up.
You've been trying to push Chris Jones out the door.
No, I haven't. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. That was all jokes. That was all in good fun. But I did think Chris Jones was going to hit the open market. I did think he was going to hit the open market because as we got closer to the legal tampering period on Monday and we still didn't have a deal done, I was like, well, it kind of feels like Chris Jones is going to see what else is out there, come back to the Chiefs, see if they can match it. And if they can't, he's gone. But I guess the NFL Combine, I'm sure has become not so much about the Combine, but a place for agents and GMs to meet to discuss free
Almost
agency
as if the
plans.
workouts themselves don't matter.
Well, that's a debate for another day, but the legal tampering period, the legal tampering period is kind of a joke because a lot of players already know what contract offers are out there for them before the legal tampering. Yeah. So
it's really poorly if he doesn't go there, but
I mean, the point still stands. Like the legal tampering period, like deals are done within 5 minutes. Okay, you have these fully structured deals that seemingly come out of nowhere. That's because they've already been discussed and were being discussed at the NFL Combine. I think Chris Jones knew what was out there, or knew that what he was going to see on the open market. And the Kansas City Chiefs were able to come to a number that, even if it wasn't necessarily what Chris Jones could have gotten on the open market, it was good enough for him to say, you know what, I'm ready to commit to the Chiefs. I'm going to stay a Kansas City Chief for the rest of my career. And like you, I don't really care about the years on this deal. You're trying to three-peat. You're trying to keep Chris Jones. He's one of the best defensive players in franchise history. This was a no-brainer, and we don't have to do the whole Chris Jones versus L'Jarius Sneed debate again, but I know that's what a lot of people are going to talk about is, what happens with L'Jarius Sneed now. He's the next domino. The first domino was Chris Jones.
Welcome to Detroit, buddy. Or Atlanta, or Minnesota, or just not here.
Yeah, Sneed's most likely getting traded. But Chris Jones was the first domino to fall. And, of course, a lot of people were like, you can't pay Chris Jones into his 30s. You can't do that. It's uncharacteristic of this front office. I think that's kind of a farce, though, because, okay, yeah, maybe the Chiefs didn't pay a declining Tyrann Mathieu. Maybe the Chiefs didn't overpay average Orlando Brown, But I don't think you can compare those. You can't, but you can't compare those guys to Chris Jones because this is Chris Jones we're talking about. And I think defensive tackles age relatively well. Like we were talking about that before we got on, about how like Fletcher Cox has still been kicking it in the league, and the Eagles keep bringing him back every single year. He's 33 years old. He's 33.
Really?
Yeah, he's 33, but he's still in the league. Aaron Donald, like everyone talks about Aaron Donald, and they're like, they use him as an example as to why the Chiefs shouldn't pay Chris Jones. I feel like a lot of Chiefs fans do that. But Aaron Donald still, even a declined Aaron Donald, quote unquote, is
Here's
still
what
getting.
I'll say about Aaron Donald, though. Aaron Donald, is still a great player, but before there's
he's been on some bad teams too. Like we can't.
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, before their Super Bowl, he was the best player in football. I know you're going to have people like in the comments being like, oh, you think Aaron Donald was a better football player than Mahomes? Objectively, yes. Like, regardless of position, Aaron Donald was the best player in the league. But what happened was after they won that Super Bowl, Aaron Donald already had the Defensive Player of the Year. He already had his money. Now he had his Super Bowl. So, he pondered retirement, and then the Rams just threw a bunch of money at him to keep him around. So, the thing with Aaron Donald is it's not necessarily that he's, getting older and declining. It's just that he checked out because he's already done everything. And we know that Chris Jones isn't going to check out because he's won 3 Super Bowls at this point. So, he wants to go win a 4th, so he's not going to check out like Aaron Donald did. So, I don't think Aaron Donald's a fair comp either. And I don't think J.J. Watt's a good comp at all, which people have been comparing Chris Jones to J.J. Watt for some reason, and Max Crosby.
Also, after that 2021 season, the Rams as a team really kind of fell off a cliff. And when you're a bad team, then your production's probably going to be down a little bit. You don't have a ton of other guys on that defense that are helping you out. Like the Rams just weren't very good. And I know he also had an ankle injury, but last year, he still had 8 sacks, 53 combined tackles. This is still an extremely productive player that we're talking about. Aaron Donald is 32. Chris Jones is 29 right now. This deal will pay him when he's 30, when he's 31, when he's 32. I really don't care about the last couple of years of the deal. I don't at all. You're looking at this kind of next 2 to 3 year window. How many championships can you win? Chris Jones gives you the best chance to win championships in the next 2 to 3 years. You know, I just feel like, again, not going to get into a whole Chris Jones versus L'Jarius Sneed debate, but Chris Jones was the more important player to keep, because if you watch him, especially in the postseason, you know, everyone wants to talk about his playoff sacks and everything like that before last year against Cincinnati in the AFC Championship. But Chris Jones is a game wrecker. He's generating that pressure. He's opening things up for other guys. I think if you're going to blame anybody for when this pass rush is bad, it's going to be the other guys outside of Chris Jones, because Chris Jones
one in particular.
Well, Chris Jones is an interior defensive tackle. Like, he can't, like, to quote another show, you know, he's not an edge player. Okay. He's not Max Crosby. Getting double teamed on the edge. Getting double teamed on the edge is not the same as getting double teamed as an interior defensive lineman. When you're getting double teamed, Chris Jones last year, not this past year, but the year before that, was the most double teamed defensive lineman in all of football. Like, remember those charts, those pass rush win rate times double team rate charts, and Chris Jones is all the way in the top right fucking corner, and no one even came close to him. You know, that was for a reason. Chris Jones was the best defensive tackle in the league that season, and I think it was a no-brainer to keep him. I think he's the obvious pick over L'Jarius Sneed, because he's the engine of that defense, like you said. He's the engine of the pass rush. I think this pass rush and this defense take a major, major step back if you don't have Chris Jones next year, because if you lose Chris Jones, you don't have like that next guy in line that can kind of like make you feel better or soften the blow of losing Chris Jones. Cause like the entire defensive tackle room is free agents. You know, Derek Notty's a free agent. Tershawn Morton's a free agent. Good. Yeah, right. And you have no defensive tackles. Meanwhile, on the back end, if you lose L'Jarius Sneed, you have McDuffie, who was the All-Pro. Veach has shown time and time again he can hit on defensive backs in the NFL draft. We talked about Shamari Connor the other day about how he was really good in the playoffs, and he looks like another mid-round steal by Brett Veach in the defensive back room. Like, I think it's more likely that Brett Veach finds another L'Jarius Sneed than he ever finds another Chris Jones. It was just too important. Chris Jones is too important of a player to simply let go. He saved 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. You don't win the AFC Championship game last year without him. And let's remember too, last year in that AFC Championship game against the Cincinnati Bengals, who got hurt in that game and was out the entire time? He got hurt after like the first drive. L'Jarius Sneed, he went out with a concussion. Chris Jones was the reason you won that game.
Yeah, and just from a simple football perspective, you know, I've talked about it a lot, Braden, I have, with how like Madden has completely destroyed football discourse with the fact that nobody thinks that football players are good past the age of 28 anymore. But just from simply understanding the game of football, pass rush makes defensive backs look better. So like, if you have the choice between like no pass rush whatsoever up front, which, you know, judging Veach's track record at defensive tackle, without Chris Jones, we'd have no push up the middle at all. So I'd much rather have push up the middle with Chris Jones and then have McDuffie, you know, the all-pro best corner on this team. Like, Sneed isn't even the best corner we have. So you have McDuffie as CB1, and then you know, I feel like we've gotten very productive snaps from Jalen Watson and Rashad Fenton. I know Rashad Fenton's not on the team anymore, but like Jalen Watson and Rashad Fenton were like 6th and 7th round nobodies. So like if you can hit with like because, you know, like you could say, oh, Rashad, like I still like Rashad Fenton, but you could say that like, oh, Rashad Fenton's a fluke. You don't get that type of production from the 6th round. And then he comes back and he gets Jalen Watson. Like, I mean, Joshua Williams kind of sucks, but if you're able to like hit on another 6th or 7th round corner again in this year's draft, you already have Conor, Jalen Watson still on the team. Like, you're going to be fine. And then there's been a bunch of like corners cut. So if you just say, call up Trey White and be like, hey, you want to sign a 1-year deal to try to win a Super Bowl? Shit, maybe Brett Veach finally signs Patrick Peterson after it's been rumored every single offseason. But the point is, you can draft a late round corner like a Fenton or Jalen Watson and then sign just like a mercenary corner like we did with Bashad Breeland, not David Amerson.
Yeah.
Let's be clear there. But it's pretty easy to find another corner. But like, what's the answer at defensive tackle? Like, if we lost Chris Jones, like everyone said, like Christian Wilkins. What are the odds that we can even get Christian Wilkins? Like,
But
there's
also,
gonna be
I was listening to the Matt Verderam show last night, and he said if you're gonna pay big money to a guy like Christian Wilkins, who's also probably gonna be like a top paid defensive tackle, why wouldn't you just spend the few extra million to keep Chris Jones?
Yeah. Get the guy who's helped you win 3 Super Bowls. You do not win any of those Super Bowls without Chris Jones. Like, he's one of the 4 Dorsey Hall of Famers that, like,
He's the
make
Mahomes of the
this team run.
defense.
Yeah.
Pretty
Like,
simple.
you don't win any of those rings without Chris Jones. Like, and it's just ignorant to think otherwise. And like, even if you're going to replace him in the draft, who are you going to replace him in the draft with? Like, there's a couple good run stopping guys, but like, there's no like game wreckers, especially year one. And you know, like everyone gets so caught up with age, and age discourse pisses me off because it's like we just won back-to-back Super Bowls and we're trying to win a third. Age does not matter. We need to get players based on what they can do now because you know, the goal is to three-peat, right? Nobody's ever done that before.
Yeah.
The only thing we should be thinking about is three-peating. Fuck the future. Let's go three-peat.
Yeah, because I mean, nobody else has done it in the history of the NFL. I think you have to try to go all in because if you three-peat, I don't think anyone's going to complain for a while if you don't win a championship. Like, obviously, we're going to want them to win the championship and hold them to a high standard. But if they actually pull out the three-peat, I don't think anyone's going to be upset if they don't win one for another few years, right? And
no
by that,
expecting to pull a reverse Bills, like
right. And by the time you get to that point, you'll be at the tail end of Chris Jones's contract. So, what really are Chiefs fans complaining about? Because you're most likely going to trade Snead for a draft pick, maybe a couple of draft picks. We'll see what ends up happening there. You're going to supplement his loss in the draft. You're probably going to draft a corner, bring in kind of like that Bashad Breeland-esque free agent that we talked about, just a solid veteran that can come and step into the room and put in good snaps. And then you're going to get a wide receiver in free agency. You're going to draft another wide receiver in the draft. This team is going to look really good next year, in my opinion. And you talked about how the offseason, the Chiefs are kind of killing it so far. Now, knock on wood, because, you know, things still have to be done. But it feels like Clark Hunt, Brett Veach, like they're committed to actually making a splash this offseason. And that splash started with bringing back Chris Jones. And now that you brought back Chris Jones, the path to having an ideal free agency is there, because you don't have Chris Jones and those negotiations kind of hamstringing you. Seems like we know what they're going to do with Snead, and then go out, get a receiver, go get your Darnell Mooney, go get your Austin Eckler, kind of revamp this offense a little bit, and then sit back and enjoy the draft.
Really, with how this team's set up, it's more addition by subtraction than anything, because like, well, the reason that I said they're killing the offseason so far, even before like free agency opens, is Chris Jones is back. They upgraded at punter for the league minimum as opposed to paying the all-pro punter.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, no one really thinks about the punter, but I'd much rather get Matt Ariza for nothing than Tommy Townsend for premium punter money. And then, of course, obviously signing Chris Jones. So really, if you upgrade at left tackle over Donovan Smith, and then you don't re-sign MVS, McColl, and Clyde, this team's already better than the one that just won the Super Bowl last year, because you got rid of your liabilities basically. And then I'm sure there's like different spots that you can upgrade. You can probably get like a better tight end to another corner, maybe a linebacker. Obviously, you need another defensive tackle too, because like Derek Nottie is not it. Mike Pennell was great for the Super Bowl, but like,
well, that's why I also
expect him for the rest of the season.
That's also why it was so important to keep Chris Jones, not just because he's a unicorn and you're not replacing him, but like the defensive tackle room was in shambles, but even behind Chris Jones before he was going to become a free agent. Like, you're going to have to rebuild that entire room. And now that you have Chris Jones back, cool, let's get him some help.
Yeah, put like a Tavondre Sweat like right next to him so that, you have your yin and yang. Tavondre Sweat's going to be your run stopper guy. Chris Jones going to be your game wrecking pass rusher because, as Chiefs fans make it very clear, Chris Jones doesn't defend the run, which is, justification for moving on from him, I guess. I hate this fan base so much, but whatever. I'm going on a tangent.
Well, I'll stop you right there because I want to add this in. We've heard all this talk about the Katz brothers, Chris Jones's agents, because everyone criticized them last year during the contract negotiations. And I remember I got blasted by Chiefs fans too, because I kept saying, guys, like, the Katz brothers aren't really in the wrong here. They're just trying to get the most possible money for their guy. That's what literally every single NFL agent does.
Wants to get their client money.
That is exactly, and that is their job. We did the same thing with Tyreek Hill, and I remember, there was a bunch of people saying, "Oh, there's no way they're going to bring back Tommy Townsend this offseason because his agent's Drew Rosenhaus." Drew Rosenhaus was Tyreek Hill's agent before he got traded during those contract negotiations, and everyone thinks Drew Rosenhaus is like out to get the Chiefs now. And it's like, guys, Drew Rosenhaus is one of the biggest agents in all of football. He represents like a quarter of the league. You can't burn an agent, because the NFL is too big of a business to be burning agents. You can't do that, because then you take yourself out of contention for every single player that agent represents. It's not good business. Everyone acts like there's this beef with Drew Rosenhaus. There's not. And then they act like there's beef with the Katz brothers. Guys, the Chiefs do not have beef with every single agent that represents NFL players. Like, this is ridiculous. The Katz brothers, everyone was all up in their grill because Chris Jones, the deal didn't get done with him last offseason. And now here we are a year later. Chris Jones just became the highest paid defensive tackle in the league. Sounds like, Connor, the Katz brothers are actually pretty good at their job.
Whoa, they got their player paid. Like, what a concept. I don't know. This fan base is brain dead 90% of the time, so I can't say that I'm surprised. But and there's always the idea, like, people in the comments saying stuff like, well, if he's more focused on money than winning rings, then he doesn't belong in Kansas City. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, you can say that for like a depth.
It's
corner.
Funny how quickly they turn their back on a player as soon as they want their money.
Yeah. Like, if you say, like, hey, you can be wide receiver 4 here for a vet minimum, if you want to win a ring, that's fine. If you're like, hey, you can be like defensive tackle 3 here for the vet minimum if you want to win a ring, that's fine. You don't say that to your best defensive player. Like, the reason why you cost cut and save money in other places is so that you can pay Mahomes and Chris Jones. Like, this isn't rocket science, people. You pay your best players. You pay your franchise cornerstones. Like, when you have a Hall of Famer on the team, you keep them. I don't know why that's such a difficult concept to grasp, but if they have a future in Canton and they're still in their prime, keep them on the roster. I know, right? What a concept.
Yeah, and like the Tyreek Hill trade was one thing, but it's not something that you want to continue doing where you're offloading every single Hall of Fame player that you have. You still want to keep as much of those guys as possible. And everyone always talks about Tyreek Hill, even when discussing the Chris Jones thing. But let's remember that the Chiefs' initial plans were to keep Tyreek Hill. They only traded him after they felt like they were too far apart on a contract, and that Devontae Adams contract happened. And then the Chiefs, they felt like they had to do it. But the original plan was to keep Tyreek Hill. They wanted to keep the band together. They traded Tyreek Hill, and that situation is a little bit different because you can find good receivers, and obviously,
they haven't.
But I was going to say, like, we saw them win a Super Bowl with, quite honestly, one of the worst wide receiver cores I've ever seen. They were the worst in the NFL. They led the league in drops. They won the Super Bowl with that, but they don't win the Super Bowl without Chris Jones. I mean,
the thing about that is, like, you can still, like, figure it out kind of on offense because, like, you can run the ball with Pacheco. You can throw the ball to Kelsey. You kind of lucked out by getting Rashee Rice as a confident receiver, but you can kind of figure it out on offense because there's still talent there. If you're not getting push up the middle, you're not winning. Like if you were like without Chris Jones, we would consistently be losing the battle at the line of scrimmage. And anybody who knows anything about football knows that if you consistently are losing the battle at the line of scrimmage, you are not going to win a lot of football games. Like it is.
Well, look at what happened in Super Bowl 55, because I've said this like 1,000 times now, but yeah, we lost mostly due to the offensive line, but Tom Brady faced the lowest amount of pressure that he's ever faced in a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 55 because the Chiefs pass rush was god awful. Chris Jones was the only guy, and you had Frank Clark on that defensive line, and he just wasn't cutting it for a while. You have, I think pass rush is the most important aspect to a playoff team when you're trying to win a Super Bowl outside of quarterback play. Quarterback play obviously is number one, but you have to be able to get pressure on the other team's quarterback. That's how you win games. And Chris Jones does that. I mean, look what happened on that final 49ers offensive play in overtime in Super Bowl 58. Chris Jones immediately blew up that play. And then there was that one play where Deebo Samuel actually got open. He actually got separation from L'Jarius Sneed, was wide open, but Brock Purdy airmailed it because Chris Jones was coming at him 100 miles per hour. And then there was also the divisional round game against Buffalo when Chris Jones batted down a pass that likely saved a touchdown. And then there was that last play before the Bills opted to kick that field goal in which they missed. Chris Jones pushed Deion Dawkins into Josh Allen's lap. So you don't win either of those games without Chris Jones. And it blows my mind still how many Chiefs fans just haven't grasped how good Chris Jones truly is, because you just need to go back and turn on the tape because he's dominant. And I don't think you're winning any of these Super Bowls without him. And if the Kansas City Chiefs were going to win any Super Bowls, if they're going to three-peat next year, it was going to be with Chris Jones.
Yeah, there's not a scenario where they don't. I don't know. There's not a scenario where you lose Chris Jones and then, God, did you see the people saying like comparing the comp pick that we would have gotten for letting Chris Jones walk to the trade haul return for Tyreek Hill?
That would have been the hardest thing to stomach too, is that you would have let him walk for nothing if you didn't get a deal done. Like you cannot let Chris Jones walk for nothing.
Yeah, I wasn't ever really worried about him going anywhere else because like what do they say like the drunk man says what the sober man thinks or something like that. So when he was on stage saying Chris Jones ain't going nowhere, I believed him when he said that. But you know, I was kind of like watching the clock like, ooh, we're getting kind of close. But I still like in my heart of hearts believed that like they'd get a deal done before Monday because I think Chris wants to be here. I just think that his agents are good negotiators. So they're like, hey, dude, don't say you want to be here. We're going to say that we're cool with going to Vegas or whatever in order just to like have leverage, you know? So that's just what I thought all that noise was. I never really thought he was gone. I thought it was just noise for negotiation's sake. But
well, I think the Chiefs kind of backed themselves into a corner to where they had really no choice but to re-sign Chris Jones because, like we just said, it would have been a catastrophic failure if they let him walk for nothing. If you were going to trade him, the time to do that would have been last year when you had him on the tag. They didn't do that. And I think the Chiefs just kind of knew, hey, we got to bring him back. It seems unlikely we're bringing Snead back, but we can't lose Snead and Jones. Like, we got to keep one of them. Chris Jones is obviously the more important one. And they gave him the money that he wanted finally. And I agree with you 100%. I think the Katz brothers negotiated this really hard and they really did squeeze every last penny that they could out of the Chiefs, because we hear so much about how Brett Veach has a number that he's not willing to pass. And whatever that number was, I think it got passed and Brett Veach budged because last year the reports were that the Chiefs were offering 27-28 and Chris Jones was saying no to that. He's getting $32 million a year, according to Ian Rappaport, with this new deal. So, yeah. And that brings me to this. So there was this one Chiefs account on Twitter that I saw, at Rut23KC. His profile picture is Brett Veach with laser eyes, right?
The
Which I think
absolute worst type of person.
well, I think it's incredibly ironic that his profile picture is Brett Veach and he's giving out takes about how he wouldn't do because he had a tweet saying that he wouldn't go north of $30 million a year for Chris Jones. And it's like, well, that's what they just did. And here you worship Brett Veach, given your profile picture, it looks like. And Brett Veach just did something that you said that you wouldn't do. I just find that funny. But he had this tweet saying, these are the this was from last year, but he said, these are the Katz brothers. They represent Chris Jones. Jones is the largest client in their portfolio by a lot. Jones is their golden goose. Jones doesn't have the leverage he's been sold, and it's hurting his potential for a new contract this year and next. That could not have been more wrong. Like, everyone was trying to bury the Katz brothers, and it's like, they just did what any good agent would do, guys. It's the Chiefs. They got to pay up if they want to keep elite players, Hall of Fame players, because if they weren't, there was going to be a team out there that was willing to pay that.
The Raiders
I said this too. Like, I also think it's disrespectful that it took this long to get a deal done with Chris Jones too. It feels like if Chris Jones was on 31 other teams in the NFL, it feels like those teams would have had him locked up a long time ago because they understand how important of a player he is. Obviously, the deal got done, so it's like, all right, we're cool now, but it would have been a catastrophic failure if they let him go.
Oh, I had the Brett Veach clown picture ready to go. Like, I was ready to parade his corpse through downtown Kansas City, like if he let Chris Jones walk, because like, you know, I probably would be a bad negotiator because like with just the caliber of player Chris Jones is, I would have just handed him a blank check. Whatever, dude. Like, you were the engine to 3 Super Bowl winning defenses. Like, you've earned it, buddy. Like, go for it. Because, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of repeating myself. We're just going back and forth, just saying over and over how, like, great of a player he is. But, like, the dude's going to Canton and he's still in his prime. Like, yeah, you're an idiot if you don't want to keep him. Or you're unhappy about this. I don't know about the link. Go fuck yourself. Like, this is no, you don't let players like Chris Jones walk.
I don't care about the length. I think if you care that much about the length, then
if you care that much about the length, you're like there's a subset of football Twitter that like so badly wants to be like the football equivalent of Peter Brand. So like anytime the obvious move is to go right, they're going to like push their glasses up and say, well, actually, we should go left. Well, actually, we should get rid of Travis Kelce. Well, actually, we should do this, this, and that, just to make themselves feel smart, because the vast majority of Chiefs Twitter is a bunch of brain dead mouth breathers.
Well said. I mean, there's not too
Am
much
I
more
wrong?
to add to that. No, I mean, I've gotten exhausted.
Shout out to Drive KC30. I think that's his.
At the Drive 30, yes.
At the Drive 30.
He's been doing the Lord's work, calling out the people that were hating on Chris Jones prior to this new deal. Now all those people are celebrating
John
that
Dorsey
Chris Jones is
profile
remaining a Chief.
picture.
Yeah. Yep. Great account. Good
John
follow.
Dorsey's burner.
It's nice though because it did feel like when they had that reworked 1-year deal to keep Chris Jones on the team in 2023 that might have been the last dance with Chris Jones, and it's just a relief that that trio of Mahomes, Kelce, and Jones still has more than a year left in them. Like, they're going to be back and they're going to be here for the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens with Travis Kelce in the next couple years, but we got that trio for just a little bit longer, and I don't think Chiefs fans should take that for granted, even though it feels like they already have a lot.
I mean, the Chiefs take every player not named Mahomes for granted, if we're being honest. Well, that's not true. They tend to put bad players on a pedestal, but like players that actually deserve praise, like Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie, Damian Williams, if we're going back a few years, just solid role players. 2 stars, that range, get kind of disrespected by Chiefs fans, but then, overrated ass players like your McCole Hardmans, your Frank Clarkson. Who ran the hills with Tyreek, Josh?
Gary Dieter.
Players like that get overrated for some reason by like most brain dead fan base in the league easily. But yeah, so I don't know. Chris Jones probably deserves better from the fans. There's no probably about it. He does. But you know what? I'm glad he's going to be here for the next half decade at least. So
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end it on. We'll probably have more in the next few days, and we'll see what happens in free agency. But the important thing is Chris Jones is back with the Kansas City Chiefs. He'll be here for the next 5 years. I firmly believe he'll finish his career as a Kansas City Chief. And
100%.
It's good vibes right now for the Chiefs, and Chris Jones is back. So we'll go ahead and end it right there, guys. But make sure you like, share it, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com for more. And then real quick before we sign off for good, Connor, anything you want to plug?
Twitter at Brady Reeks, YouTube Prime Connor.
There you go. That will be down in the description below. Make sure you check all that out. Make sure you turn on the notification bell for future content. We'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.